Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the Gary
And Crystal.
Show.
Shoe? What's a shoe?
You know, like Ed Sullivan, kind of like we're going to have a really big shoe tonight.
Oh, sounds like something you put in your foot.
Well, if you could put the Gary and Crystal Show on your foot, that would really be a big feat, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right.
Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah. So how was your week?
It was cold.
Yeah, it was cold, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I noticed that there was some snow.
Yep, we finally got that winter kind of came through on us.
Right. I'm kind of happy to see the snow, actually. I mean, there's nothing on the ground, though, right now.
There's a little bit up north, up in the northern suburbs. There's like a coating.
Okay.
Little coating of snow on the ground, but down here in the city, there's nothing really.
Right. Well, I hope we have snow for Christmas. Though. Yeah, I like to have snow for Christmas. So you want to get started?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I just want to start off with the bad news, and that is in regards to the bank closings. You know, last week we were excited because there were 0 bank closings, but like as we said, it was a holiday week, so we didn't really know if that meant anything. And sure enough, at the end of this week, today actually, they announced that there were 6 bank closings.
That's quite a few. Yeah,
there was one here in Aurora, Illinois, and then there was one in Virginia, one in Cleveland, and 3 in Georgia.
Wow.
And the one in Aurora is called Benchmark Bank. If anybody's interested in that, hopefully you don't bank there.
Right. Sounds like Atlanta is doing pretty bad. You had 3 in Georgia?
They said Georgia had 26 bank closings this year.
Okay.
For some reason.
Wow. So, I have just some more information about banks. I hit the FDIC.gov website, and actually you can find this information on that particular website. They list on Fridays the number of banks that have closed for that week. But I went back to 2000, and they had they list every bank that's closed or failed since the year 2000. And it's really interesting because in the earlier years, really there weren't that many bank failures. So, for example, in 2000, they had 2 banks that failed. 2001, 4 banks failed. 2002, 11 banks failed. 2003, 3 banks failed. 2004, 4 banks failed. 2005, 0 banks failed. 2006, 7 banks failed. 2007, only 1 bank failed. And then all of a sudden, in 2008, we had 26 banks that failed.
Wow. And
then, of course, 2009, and the year isn't over with yet, we've already had 130 bank failures. So I guess if I was looking at these numbers, and I wasn't actually a couple of years ago, but if I had been looking at them, I think the year 2008 would have been kind of a red flag that something's going on in the financial markets. And of course, later on we find out that, you know, the banking system was facing a systemic failure.
Right. Well, up until last year, there wasn't. It was kind of a non-factor because the numbers were so low.
Right.
Obviously, that's certainly changed. Now everybody's looking at bank closings.
Right. Exactly. Something else too that's been in the news, and that's because we've been having a lot of green shoot signs that the economic recession might be over with. The jobless numbers came out, and it said that for last month we lost the fewest amount of jobs since the recession began a couple of years ago. The number of jobs that were lost were 10,000 jobs, and then the unemployment numbers went down too as well. Unemployment figures were somewhere between 10.2 and 10.5%, and now the unemployment numbers for last month was 10%. So I guess the Obama administration is taking credit for that and saying that the stimulus program is working, and that's why we're starting to see, right. And I don't know. I mean, I probably just playing the devil's advocate. I think it's just something that's temporary. I don't think it's long term. I don't see anything really that points to this being sustainable for any length of time. I suspect that the jobless numbers going down and the unemployment numbers going down, especially since the unemployment numbers were so small, it's like less than a percentage point. It's probably due to seasonal hiring because we're in the holiday season now, so a lot of people are being hired, but they'll be terminated come January. So those are temporary jobs, not permanent jobs. So I think a better time to look at the numbers will be probably somewhere around February of next year.
Yeah, and even beyond that, really, to see how things go.
Right. So do you have any other articles you want to share? Or do you want to start off with an article?
Well, I could. We can talk about this Wall Street Journal article. This is in regards to a meeting that several mayors from around the country had, talking about their woes that they're having, their financial problems. They're, I guess, had a little summit to try to get together and maybe try to see if anybody had any ideas Unlike, hopefully they're not going to do what we did and sell their parking meters for
that was
revenue.
a disaster.
And I know they were Chicago. Mayor Daley was talking about selling the water supply, and I know there was hopefully enough of an outcry to keep that from happening.
Right.
So, and that's because the cities are all hurting. They're not getting the local revenues that they used to get. People aren't spending as much money. They don't get sales tax. Real estate prices are their values are down, so they get less real estate taxes, and so it's been a burden on them. So they're slashing, services, even police and fire.
Right.
So, they're just saying that this is just kind of an unknown waters because they've never been there before. So they're trying to come up with some ideas.
So any ideas come out of the summit that you're aware of?
Nothing really. They're just saying that change has to come, but I don't think they've really come up with anything. They were hoping that the federal stimulus money was going to help them, but those tended to go to specific things and not really job creations.
Right. So I think you said that they were being used for
like salaries for teachers,
right.
and just kind of going into very specific programs or more state road funded things and didn't really help the city budgets at all.
Right. So it sounds like the money was used maybe to kind of shore up, I guess, if they were some budget shortfalls.
Mm-hmm.
The money might have been used for that more so than being used. So if it's paying salaries and things like that of existing workers, so it's not being used for job creation or hiring or anything of that nature.
Yeah. And then it says here that Mesa, for the first time, has levied a property tax.
Mesa, where?
Arizona. They never
Okay.
had a property tax, and now they've instituted one.
Okay.
So, I mean, they have to they're going to try to find money some ways.
Right.
And I think that, I think we see even an increase perhaps in, writing traffic tickets and some of these automated traffic violation devices that they have. They're just they're grasping for straws. They're just trying to get money any way they can right now.
Right. Yeah, I have heard that. I know that had a family member that came down to Chicago for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, and the whole ride down just mentioned that there was an unbelievable number, I guess maybe more so than normal, cops out, police officers looking to give tickets for speeding and whatnot. And I know that there is always an increase, and that's for safety purposes. But I guess the feeling is that maybe the numbers seem to be out there more just to find ways of generating revenue by handing out more tickets during the holiday season, as opposed to more of a safety purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in law enforcement, don't know anybody, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bigger push to bring in revenue.
Right, to try and raise money. So now I have an article here. This is from the Charlotte Observer, and it talks about, last week we had talked about, actually the last couple of weeks we had talked about the loan modification program and just how it's not really working. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Loans are not being modified. And there's this organization called the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, and what they are doing this weekend, and it started on Thursday, it goes through Monday morning. They rented out a facility, basically like a conference hall in Carolina, and what they're going to do is just kind of have a marathon where they're going to work with homeowners trying to get their mortgages modified. And they take an aggressive, according to this article, they take an aggressive approach, and they work really hard with banks that have issued those predatory loans to try and get those loans modified. And so in this particular article just talks about a family in California. Their home was in the process of being foreclosed on.
California?
Yeah, California. And they flew to this program. They flew to North Carolina. They flew in on Wednesday, and they camped out all night in the rain, cold rain, so that way they can be the first in line to have their loan modified. And they were lucky. Their mortgage actually was reduced. It said by 10 a.m. on Thursday morning, they left with their mortgage going from $3,100 a month down to $1,730 a month.
Guess it was worth the trip?
It was worth the trip. And I know a lot of people are really not happy about this modification program, particularly those that pay their mortgages on time every month. It's like, if I pay my mortgage on time every month, why should I help out somebody else that, got in over their head, or, they are not paying their mortgage amount on time. And I think that a lot of people probably don't realize just how bad some of these predatory loans are.
Yeah, I think you said you had an example of a client that you had that had a really just a terrible loan, right?
Right. And this I ran until a couple of years ago. I had a client. We were working with the lender. He went with a loan company. And I was trying to get some of the loan information from the lender, and I was wondering why the lender was so difficult. I mean, I was like pulling teeth trying to get any information out of the lender. So we get to the closing table, and the loan documents